The Survivor Specialists Phil and Tegwith are back, and today we're digging into another episode of Everything You Need to Know About, and we are talking about Ozzy, the one person from the old era whose last name I have never figured out how to say, so I'm not even going to try. I've introduced everybody else by first and last name so far, and it just has never crossed my mind to figure out how to say it, which is just funny because I feel like normally once you hit legend status and play as many times as Ozzy has, you're getting called by your last name at least once by Jeff, but
Ozzy's
everything you need to know
Ozzy.
about this. Yeah. Everything you need to know about Ozzy is not his last name. That's pretty much how we're starting this podcast.
Absolutely.
So he has played, we're coming to this one. He's played it 4 times. Saw him first time in Cook Islands all the way back in 2006. Mm-hmm. He was 24, 25 when that one aired. He's 43 now. The last time we saw him play was Game Changers. We also saw him on Micronesia. We saw him on South Pacific. He has made the merge in every single season he's played. He almost won South Pacific. He was runner-up his first time in Cook Islands. He finished 9th in Micronesia in one of the most vicious blindsides you'll ever see. And then in Game Changers, I literally have no idea what Ozzy did. So where do we, what are you thinking when you're looking at Ozzy coming into this season? And if you're telling people this is what you need to know about Ozzy, he's obviously a challenge king, but is there anything else aside from that?
Well, I think that, he is somebody who, like you said, has been on the receiving end of blindsides. And, he's played this game so many times. And obviously he is known as being a challenge beast. But on a season with other players that are also challenge beasts, I'm very curious to see how he will stack up against them because, it has been so long since his first time out. But I do think that there is a knowledge that you bring to the game, having been on the receiving end of a blindside, especially the one in Micronesia. Leaving with an idol in your pocket. And so I just feel like that is something that is sometimes overlooked with Ozzy, just having that kind of knowledge of what that's like. And, playing 4 times, at least something about the game, right? I know that he's not super high on a lot of people's ranking of how he's going to do, but I do think you play 4 times, the intricacies of social dynamics, you understand those unspoken things between people. And so I think that's kind of something that can be overlooked with Ozzy, but I'm excited to see play out here for season 50 with this cast.
Yeah, I when Will and I did our winner rankings for each player, we put Ozzy as somebody with no shot to win because I feel like we saw his best game in Cook Islands and he lost. It was set up for him to win and he couldn't close it out against Yule at the end. And then in South Pacific, a season that was literally designed for Ozzy to win. Redemption Island was put on the show for Ozzy to be able to succeed. And he uses it very interestingly in that season. We obviously see him elect to be voted out to even up the numbers coming out, and they keep Cochran in the game and vote Ozzy out instead. Ozzy wins. Little did they know that Cochran was just going to flop on them anyway, and they would have been better off having Christine. But we saw some strategic chops there. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, Ozzy has played 128 days of Survivor. So going back to your point, he's been out there so much. But there's been almost no development, in my opinion, of him. He is the challenge guy. His first season, he wins 5 individual immunities, which ties the record. But he actually has the record for highest win percentage. He only had 6 opportunities, and he won 5 of those challenges. So it's almost as good as you could do, better than Colby or Terry or Tom or any of them. So, he's a challenge guy. He's, he was good at fishing. He was good at all that stuff. But the challenges have changed so much even since Game Changers. So is he going to be able to play the game in this votes are being lost, strategy heavy, a lot of advantages kind of way? Or is it going to kind of go Game Changers, which was advantage getting, where he gets 12th place and really makes no impact on the season?
That's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about that it's going to go Game Changers, but I really like to believe that people learn from their mistakes, and whether or not Ozzy did, who knows? But I do think that he realized he had little to no impact on that game. And so I do think that when he goes into this, he's played so many times in so many different ways, obviously every time focusing on physical, and he's probably still a very physical guy, but he's just not in his prime anymore. And so I just think that I'm really hoping that he's going to be able to draw from his past mistakes and use that to his advantage in season 50. But even when I say that, and I know that he's obviously a very physical guy, well known for the what do we call the just holding on to the pole one.
Yeah.
Jeff in interviews has said that they're making these challenges harder, mainly because he thinks it's more interesting the quicker they go. We can have a whole discussion on that, but I think that's a big thing, that Ozzy will come in not really expecting that and be blindsided by that part of the game, where he knows that he is good at endurance challenges, but these endurance challenges have changed. They've been updated. And so, the one where he is most well known for winning and playing doing incredibly well multiple times, I think he's really going to struggle because, again, he's not, in his prime. Not to say he's not physical, but he's just not in his prime like he was when he was 25. And Survivor has updated these challenges. And so the thing that I think he typically can rely on, which is his physicality, is not going to be as much a part of his game this time because of just the changes that Survivor has made to all of this.
Yeah, and that's where I feel like out of any of the physical players like Colby, Ozzy, all that, and Stephanie even, I think Ozzy, it's the biggest detriment to him aging because now he's only 43. Like he's still on the younger side for this cast because of how old this cast skews. But I always think of Ozzy on the Flying Fox in Survivor Cook Islands, right? Where he's holding on, he's flying over the water and everything. That's what I always think of. And then, like you said, the endurance challenges have kind of gone away. Now last season it was all about how strong are your forearms. Like David and Joe killed those. And those types of fun, really athletic focused challenges are gone. They're not in the individual portion of the game anymore like they were when he was dominating challenges. Now he's 43. We've seen him play these other seasons. We saw him be very well liked by his tribe in South Pacific. Like that was factual. But I just don't know if there's any game for him if he's not winning. You have to think in Game Changers, his tribes win the first 5 individual immunity or team immunities in that season. So he's never in danger of going home. And then he gets put onto the disaster Manu tribe of Sandra, who's a bigger threat. And then obviously the whole Varner situation, which is like gross. And Ozzy was there for that, which I was saying to you before this, I honestly don't even remember Ozzy being there. That's how crazy, how much I try to blur that from my mind. But it's like, if he gets in trouble in the early portion of the game, if his tribe starts losing challenges, is he still going to be as good and as useful as he used to be in the team portion? That'll help him go further.
And there's also something to think about, it's a lot of these, something that I'm worried about, like we saw in season 40, is these old era players getting kind of blindsided in the beginning, cut in the beginning. And I think Ozzy is really I'm nervous for him if they do lose, because even if he is 43 is not that old, right? He still is a physical guy. And he has a reputation for being good at individual immunity challenges, no matter how old he is. If his tribe does go to tribal council early on, so much has changed that the new era doesn't really care as much about winning tribal immunity anymore. They don't really care as much about the fishing. It's just it's a much more fast-paced game. So because of that, people don't care as much. And so people might look at Ozzy and go, yeah, this is the second vote. But do we really feel like we need him? Number one. And number two, do we want to risk keeping him knowing he might win immunities down the line? And which is why I'm really nervous for him if they do go to tribal council, which is why I don't think he's going to have a ton of longevity in the game.
Yeah, because I've talked highly of Colby in a couple of the podcasts that we've done on in the build up to season 50, and people are like, there's no way Colby can win. It's like Colby's a very normal guy. Like Colby on Heroes Villains, which everybody says, oh, it wasn't that good. It's like Colby is normal on that season, though. He honestly gets ostracized for defending Stephanie from James just because of pregame alliances more than anything. Ozzy, I see having a really hard time with these new era people. The one thing that Ozzy has going for him is he goes to events. We've both seen him at the Ron Clark event back-to-back years now. I don't know if he's been there more, but I know I've seen him twice. He, the first time I met Ozzy was all the way back during season 33. He went to the EW Pop Fest out in Los Angeles the one year that they did that. And the thing is, he's active, right? People know Ozzy, which could help him. He's only played on an actual season with Coach and with Sari that are on this cast. but people know who he is, right? The new era people, we know that there's 48ers who have met Ozzy. We know there are 47 and 40. I don't know if Genevieve has, but there's 46ers who have met Ozzy. And so does that help him when he gets out there? Or are they going to be like, wow, this guy literally won't talk strategy? He says he's going to change. Supposedly somebody was saying on RHAP, that's what he says, but you can say that all you want. He hasn't done anything different any of the times he's played.
Yeah, and I think it would be I obviously it's in his best interest to change because he, did very well his first time. He did okay his second time. He did very well his third time and then did poorly his fourth. So, if we're seeing that trend, maybe he does very well again.
Yeah.
But, I do think that I don't think he's an idiot, right? Like I
Yeah.
haven't had a long conversation with him. I've only talked to him briefly, but like I know he knows the game. He understands the game and he's not able to pull it out every single time. But I do think that he is able to create the bonds. The like 5 minutes I spoke to him, we talked to him about he loves to read and we talked to him about books and I had a great conversation with him for I talked to him for like 5 or 6 minutes. And I can't say that about every single survivor that I've met. And so if he's able to kind of like carry on that kind of conversation with a fan after meeting hundreds of fans in one night, all that stuff. I imagine he's going to be able to, make some bonds, maybe do some pre-game
Yeah.
alliances, whatever, with these newer players. And I don't know, I think he is a little bit more malleable than I in the past have given him credit for, because I think that he's able to kind of maybe roll with the punches. Do I think he's going to drive the strategy? Do I think probably not, but I do think that he is somebody who might be able to be molded in an alliance, all that stuff, to maybe put him at least to the merge. But I'm nervous about the threat of that physical aspect for him.
Yeah, and to talk about kind of, how he's a little more malleable than people maybe give him credit for, just to kind of go through his history. He's played on an all newbie cast. He's played on a half and half cast. He's played on a one returnee per tribe cast, and he's played in an all returnee season. He's the only castaway to have done that. The only Survivor castaway. So he has seen every version of Survivor. His first season had the super idol. The next season he plays, he's the first returning player to find an immunity idol. He's the first one. And he finds it, and that's not a super idol. He gets voted out within his pocket. Then he plays again where there are these regular idols and all that. He sees more advantages and twists and stuff in game changers, even if they maybe don't directly affect him. But he has played in a lot of different eras of Survivor. He's played a lot of different themes of Survivor. The thing that worries me, it's like the anti-Aubrey. The season he did the worst in is the one that was all returning players, and that's what he's about to walk into again, which worries me that maybe he gets along better with newbies or, a smaller portion of returnees than he does with all returnees who maybe feel like, I want the scalp. I want to take him out.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. Also, if you think about, in Micronesia, when he found the idol, he planted a fake idol that was very obviously like a fake idol. And the person that he fooled was a new player. And the person that he didn't fool was Eliza. So, you think about that, where I think that's a very good point. He's playing with all returnees. And you're right. He doesn't typically do well when it's so many returning players. And I do think that a lot of times when newbies play with him, it is just like, oh my God, Ozzy, we got to keep Ozzy around. It's Ozzy. Whereas, returning players aren't really blinded by that as much. And so I do think that's a very good point where he will have to, kind of bump up his game a little bit. He can't rely on the simple tricks that might, work on you or me if we're playing for the first time. It probably wouldn't work on, Sari, Aubrey, Christian Hubicki. Like it's not going to work on these other players.
Yeah, because I guess he's also played with Aubrey. Did I say so?
He's
It's
played with,
Coach Aubrey and Sari. He's been with
yeah.
all the, and he's gonna be on a starting tribe with one of them. You would think maybe. I mean, there is a way that they could put Coach and Sari on the same tribe because they've never played together. But Sari's also played with Aubrey, so you would think Ozzy, Sari, Aubrey are going to be split, and then it's a matter of does Ozzy get one. Some bad things for Ozzy, like some negatives. He's been voted out the most times in Survivor history. He's been voted out 5 times. He also is he's one of 2 players to have received more than 30 votes against them in their career, 17 of which came in South Pacific. Do you know who he is, who he shares that title with of over 30 votes?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, the only person I'm thinking of is Kelly Wentworth, which I don't think is true. Just because she got 11 or 10. And so I was like, that's a big chunk. I don't know who.
Sierra Easton.
Oh,
Yeah. Sierra Easton's the only other one, which makes sense because she's the first boot of Game Changers. Gets a lot of votes throughout all of Blood versus Water. And then obviously in Second Chance, she had a huge target on her back. So Sierra is the one there with that. But yeah, like, so Ozzy, just talking about his wins and stuff, like individual wins, 16 of them throughout his career, 43 total. Like if you're on his tribe, you've won 27, but he's gotten 34 votes against him. So you
how
start to
many
say,
did he win
okay,
in
yeah,
Game
that's because he
Changers?
got voted out twice. Let's see, how many did he get in
Because
Game
that's, I
Changers?
think that Game Changers is the one that I think that I'm putting the most stock in, because obviously
7.
it's the closest in his age, that's still very good.
Yeah, well, wait, are you saying how many wins did he have or how many votes against? Sorry, I missed
Wins,
that.
sorry, wins.
Oh,
Oh,
wins. So
okay.
in Game Changers, he wins one reward challenge in the individual portion. He loses both immunities, and he loses Get a Grip, which is the one that he had won twice going into the season. So it's kind of funny, like passing of the torch there. His tribe wins everything except for one reward until they get to that. It's not Manu, it's Nuku. I just had Manu on the brain. It's Nuku, and then they lose both immunity challenges there. And obviously there's no votes that take place at the Varner tribal. So he gets 7 votes and they're all when he goes home.
Right. Yeah. So I think, I obviously, like I've said it a couple of times, I'm nervous for him if they go to tribal council, but I do think that, he has some tricks up his sleeve. I think he's going to be able to pull something out. And I think if anything, he uses the argument, hey, I am a shield. And now who could he be a shield for? Probably like Joe. He could be a shield because he's just a bigger name. He's a bigger name. And it's one of those things, like Denise wanted to get out Sandra, right? To be the Queen Slayer with her own idol and all that, like taking her idol, all that stuff. Like sometimes having a move like that is an ego boost for the person voting them out. But I do think that, like, Ozzy is always going to be a target, so that could work for his advantage. And if he leans into that, it might actually end up being a positive thing for him.
I mean, do you think he can, though? Do you think that you have high expectations for him, or do you think he's probably going to end up on the wrong side of the numbers on an 8-person tribe?
I think he's going to end up on the wrong side. Here's the thing. I think that he survives 1 or 2 tribal councils if they go as a group, because I do think that in the very beginning, people aren't going to want to be going back to tribal council, even though I know they don't put as much stock in it these days as they used to. But if they go to tribal council more than 3 or 4 times, I think he would be on the losing end of that, and I think he will go home. Now, if he's on a winning tribe that wins a lot, I could see him going kind of far, and kind of just like sneaking under the radar, because he's a big threat, because his name is always out there, and because his name is always out there, it's not always going to be him. But I don't know. I see him surviving 1 or 2 tribal councils and then going home, if he goes to a 3rd or a 4th.
Yeah, I feel like because this is probably going to be 2 tribes going to tribal every week, he's in trouble there. But I also feel like he's not going to be the player who overplays week 1 or week 2. Like, you're going to have people who you say, why is that person trying to over strategize? Who is this? And I think that actually works in Ozzy's favor. He can play an under the radar game, even though his name is Ozzy. And even though everybody's seen him win 5 immunities in one season, I think a lot of people would just be like, well, he's dangerous, but he's not the most dangerous. Let's worry about these other people. And then as the merge gets closer and closer and closer and closer, you start to think of Ozzy as a bigger threat. But honestly, Ozzy could go the way of Colby in Heroes versus Villains, where you start saying, is this Superman in a fat suit? Because you're like, he's not really as good at these new style of challenges as other people. Like, yes, there's a lot of swimming. Yes, he can still go and dominate the swimming portions, but everything ends with a complex puzzle at this point. Or it's an endurance challenge that's really arm-based. Like, you've met Ozzy, I've met Ozzy. He's not a big guy. Like, he is a normal shaped guy. I'd rather compete against him in a bicep curl challenge than David. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's 100% right. And I don't know. I do think that he won't be the number 1 target, at the beginning of the thing, because he's a chill guy. He's honestly, pretty chill. And like I said, he's not a one-trick pony. He has many other interests. He can talk to people, he can make conversation. And I don't think he's somebody who's going to overplay. If anything, I worry that he's not going to play enough. Like, he might underplay. And so I do think that is to his advantage. Starting off, especially in a big season like 50, especially with 24 players, I do think that's something that will help him. And now here's the thing. Like I said, if I don't think that he is the number one target, if he can really solidify bonds in the beginning, if he can really build tight alliances, if he can really, get people together and build like a strong bond with somebody early on, I think that could really help him. Obviously, but I just worry that his target is so big because his name is Ozzy, and there's really nothing that he can do to combat that just because he is who he is. Now, all that being said, I'm excited, and I really hope that we see something new from him. I'm really hoping that, the trend of doing really well, doing not so great, doing really well, doing not so great leads him to say, he's gonna do really well and he's gonna do something new. But I'm like not overly confident that that's the case this time.
I think the other thing too, and just to get into the tribe dynamic a little bit before we end this, but like his best case scenario of the other olds, because I'm assuming that they're going to do 4 pre-40, 4 post-40. If they're not doing that, like who knows? And I get we're pre-recording these, so if the tribes are already announced, like we're saying this anyway. But his best case starting tribe is to have somebody like a Mike White or a Colby as the other pre-40 man. The problem for me is I don't see many women that favor him here. Sari and Aubrey have played with him, so I'm eliminating them. If he gets Colby, he's not going to get Jenna, because even though they didn't actually play together, they were on the same season in All-Stars. Stephanie, I don't know if Ozzy and Stephanie are going to get along that well. I think they're too headstrong. Like Ozzy's a more chill headstrong, but I think they're headstrong. Chrissy, I don't see working with Ozzy. And who am I missing? I'm missing Angelina. Like no way. No way.
Yeah.
So I think I don't love the old schoolers. He would need to get a favorable new school draw for him to go further in this game.
Yeah, he's definitely going to have to pair up with some new schoolers. I think I just don't see many of the old schoolers like exactly how you said, working with him totally in step and in line and all that stuff. I really think that he will just have to, especially because he's been in the community for so long, right? Like we know that there are pre-existing relationships, and possibly, getting with Savannah or Rizgod might be his best option, because, what they might be in the Survivor community as fans, they are unknowns. And but that means that they know him, they know Ozzy, and not vice versa. And I think that is probably going to be what he needs, is like a 48, a 49 person to work with him. And I will also say, did she say Ozzy? No, she didn't. Sorry. She said somebody else. I was thinking like Camilla, I think, said one of her favorite players was Ozzy, but I don't think it was.
It was just that Boston Rob stinks, right? Isn't that essentially what we said? Yeah.
No, she loves Philip. It's Coach. I'm thinking of Coach. She loves Coach. Camilla will 100% work with Coach, but this is not the Coach or Camilla pod. This is the Ozzy pod.
Yeah. We're getting there. You have Camilla on your docket.
We do. But so I do think that like being able to pair up with some of these new Survivor players might be his best bet. But I'm just interested to see if he will actually be able to pull that off.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's Ozzy. That's everything you need to know about Ozzy. He's played 4 times. He's coming back for his 5th. He was so close, lost by 1 vote his first time out, and we'll see what he can do this time. Like literally, he has 2 winning games almost. South Pacific and Cook Islands. Not many players can say that. So we'll see what he does. I still think he has no shot, but maybe he can get in with the right people and figure something out. Thank you all so much for listening. Let us know what you think about Ozzy on this season. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time with another episode.
Bye.